All right. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Thank you for joining us. Oh, I didn't start the timer. One sec. CD, desktop mistake times, Ruby, mistake times.rb. Okay. The timer has started. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about. It's for when there's mistakes. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Brian's here. Say hello, Brian. We got a big show today.
Hey, Elon.
Hi. Okay. Ready to start?
I am ready to start.
Okay. Check out my cool new Anchor shirt.
I was just gonna say cool sweater.
Thank you. Okay.
Where is it from?
Winners.
Why are anchors like the print of choice?
I also got another one with flamingos.
Wow, you know what? I was at Winners and I might have seen that. I got one with lobsters.
Oh, I like
we
that.
bought the same shirt just with a different print.
Probably different size.
How much was it?
Can I start? Let's start. I'll tell you after.
Fat?
Save this for the post-show banter. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm not wearing a onesie. Look, I have pants on.
That could be just an elaborate onesie. I'm not convinced.
It's a very cool look. If you saw the whole thing, you'd see I look very cool right now.
Elon's so ready to start until someone accuses him of wearing a onesie.
Okay.
And then he's got problems.
That's worth clearing up. Let's start. Here we go. Yeah! Yes! Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who own Eric Karlsson in their keeper pools. I'm your host, Elon Dubriv. Oh, I forgot my name. I'm your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me, as always, is the maestro of the matchup, the player projection pundit, the Corsi authority, the ad drop ace, the IPP MVP. Thank you, Oreo Salad, for that. From Twitter, also from Richard, the forecasting fanatic, the rotisserie robot, the poobah of prognostication. I've got more, but we got to get started. Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everyone. Elon, you deserve a name too. How about the IR superstar? With the way you have managed our IR in our league where we both own a team, we're going, well, I don't want to jinx it. We have a really good shot at making the finals next week, depending on tonight's games. Elon, do you want to tell the story of how you became the IR superstar?
I figured out a trick on Yahoo. I'm very proud of this. Let me know if you guys have heard of this before. If not, I want this to be named after me. Okay, say you have two players who are day-to-day. So earlier this week, both Paul Stastny and Antti Ranta were both day-to-day. And so I was able to fit either of them into my IR plus. And they were like, we only had room for one more IR plus spot, but we had these two guys who were IR eligible. So I went and set the lineup for the rest of the week on the days where Ranta was playing. I had him in and Stastny in IR plus. And then for the days when Stastny was playing, I put him in and put Ranta in IR plus. So like yesterday, we got Ranta's game. Now today, we're going to get Stastny's game. It's like having an extra roster spot. So if going into your finals, you have a couple of IR eligible players who you think are going to be out soon, like Andre Palat might be coming back next week. I don't know. You'll figure it out on your own. Go set your lineup. Maximize your roster spots. You can move people in and out of IR as you're setting your lineup until they actually lose their IR eligibility. So there you go. That's a little trick for you. The Elon.
The Elon. Dubbed the Elon. Anyway, we've got a great show full of little tips and tidbits like that. Before we get started, if you're going to be in Ottawa on April 1st, you can come out and watch a game with Elon and I. We're going to just find a place to go, watch a game, invite patrons, invite listeners. We'll keep you posted on the details. Follow us on Twitter if you're interested. And we'll probably have details on next week's show. But Elon did not want to talk a lot about that. So let's get to the content.
Yes. Okay. Did you say the date, though?
April 1st, 8 p.m.
Sunday night, April 1st, 8 p.m. If you're in Ottawa, come hang out with us. Okay, Brian, we've got so much to talk about. I can't believe how many injuries and outjuries are happening to people right in the fantasy playoffs. Obviously, outjuries happening to people is good. Injuries, not so much. So we're going to go through all the ones that I think are fantasy relevant, get your take on who should maybe be added, what people can do. Before we get to that, let's, of course, mention that we are presented by the best fantasy hockey website out there, which is dobberhockey.com. You guys all know what I'm talking about. If you are good at fantasy hockey, you're a frequent visitor of dobberhockey.com because they have articles every day talking about what's going on. You got your daily ramblings. You've got more in-depth articles investigating players, whether, their hot streaks or cold streaks are sustainable or fleeting. Then you've also got a whole suite of tools at frozen pools, including like starting goalies and line combinations. It's all there. You can just spend all your fantasy playoffs there at dobberhockey.com and you'll do well. So that's dobberhockey.com. Brian, I want to get started now. You know what? I think injuries are too depressing. So how about we start with some outjuries and then we'll slowly get into the injuries. We'll ease in once we have people happy with all these exciting players returning. And I want to go to Buffalo first and start with the return of Jack Eichel, who finally came back to the Sabres on Saturday, and he had himself a very nice return. He put up a power play assist and 5 shots on goal against the Chicago Blackhawks. The Sabres, by the way, have a really great schedule next week. They play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Mwah! You love those off-day 4-game schedules. So his owners must be ecstatic to get Jack Eichel back. If they're still alive, going to their semifinals or their finals next week, they get back this superstar with a great schedule. What could be better? Eichel, by the way, now has 54 points in 56 games on the season. His career high is 57 points. He's going to destroy that career high, even with having this big injury. Of course, he had big injuries in the previous years, or else his career high would have been a lot higher. I would be surprised if he beats that by like Friday or something. Like by next week, he'll have his career high season. Anyways, that's not all for the Buffalo Sabres. Evan Rodriguez came back. He's been back for a couple of games now. Kyle Okposo is practicing with the team, and he might be back as soon as tomorrow. So here were the practice lines tweeted by @JoeYurden today. They were skating in practice with Pouliot, Eichel, and Pominville, Scott Wilson, Ryan O'Reilly, and Reinhart, and then Okposo with Rodriguez and Griffiths. So I guess spreading around Okposo and Ryan O'Reilly and Eichel onto 3 different lines. Of course, also Sam Reinhart needs to be mentioned there as one of the superstars. He's been so good lately. By the way, Zemgus Girgensons is hurt. I know no one cares, but just for completeness about the Buffalo roster. Top power play, by the way, yesterday was Eichel, Ryan O'Reilly, Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, and Ristolainen. And of course, I would imagine Okposo bumps Rodriguez. So where does that leave us? We have this great schedule next week, a team that just put up 5 goals versus the Blackhawks. I'd imagine it would definitely behoove fantasy owners to check their free agency and see who from the Sabres might be available to pick up. I'd imagine Kyle Okposo, if he's out there, is going to be someone you're going to recommend people add. He had a really nice run, if you recall, like before getting injured. He hadn't doing much for most of the season, so he was in free agency earlier, and people were probably kicking themselves for not picking him up. Anyone who did pick him up might have dropped him because he was injured. So now you can get him back, get those top power play games for like Monday, Wednesday, Friday at least. So he might be someone to look at. Jason Pominville might be worth looking at with 4 shots in each of his last 3 games. And if he's going to play on a line with Jack Eichel, pretty good. Evan Rodriguez, of course, had 2 assists in his return versus the Leafs. Nothing yesterday, though if he's going to get bumped from the top power play, then you're probably not interested in him. So, Brian, I'll let you talk now. What's your sense of potential Buffalo free agents? Are there any in particular that you think people should target?
No, I think you've pretty much nailed it as far as Buffalo free agents go. After last week's bum schedule for the Sabres that we talked about, maybe you've got a couple worthwhile ones floating around your free agent pool. Okposo, to me, is not so appealing. Pominville is in the better spot right now, but those 2 could flip spots at any moment as they have a couple times this year. And Sam Reinhart just chugging along, 12 goals, 17 assists for 29 points in his last 27 games. Add to that 74 shots, 10 power play points again in 29 games. And Reinhart has been so consistent through this stretch too while putting up those points. Only once has Sam Reinhart gone 2 straight games without a point. Elon, I have a question for you. I don't know. I'm wondering if this is a toughie or not. How many people do you think have scored more points than Sam Reinhart since January 18th, which is when his run began?
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying he's above a point per game, I can't imagine it's too many, like maybe 3 or 4.
Would you believe 16 people have scored? I was as shocked as you are. I was thinking like, well, he's probably got to be in the top 5 since January 18th. There are just a lot of points being scored in the NHL. Connor McDavid has 37 in 25 games. Malkin has 42 in 25. Eric Stahl and Mikko Rantanen are in the top 5 in this time period. David Perrin in the top 10. Is it Perrin or Perron? I forget.
For sure, Perron.
Okay. David Perron in the top 10. Anyway, back to Sam Reinhart. He's finally playing up to the 2nd overall pick billing that he earned in the 2014 draft and is now moved into 4th place in scoring amongst his draft class. So congratulations on that to Sam Reinhart.
Okay, but Sam Reinhart's probably not available for anyone, so it's great that we gave him another set of kudos, just like we did, I think, for the past couple of weeks on the show. But you really breezed past. So Okposo and Pominville, you're saying that you would pick up Pominville for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule next week over Okposo? I understand that you're saying Pominville's playing with Eichel at even strength, but if Okposo's on that top power play, I think I'd rather get the top power play guy rather than the guy playing on a better even strength line. Like Jack Eichel himself, he had a point in the first game. It's on the power play, not at even strength. But anyways, I guess you have to wait and see, first of all, to make sure Okposo's even on that top power play. Because like I said, it was Evan Rodriguez before, but that's just because they haven't had a game with Okposo yet. He might not even be back, but I think he's going to be back.
Yeah, I mean, pick your poison. I think Okposo probably has the better shot at being both in the top six and on the top power play at the same time. Better shot at doing that than Jason Pominville has. So you can try and put your bets on that. But we have seen Okposo just stick in the bottom six and be nearly useless at even strength. So if that's the case, if that's where he stays, then you're essentially picking your poison between those two guys.
I wouldn't call it picking your poison. These are guys on good lines and good situations, and picking your antidote, right? You're
picking your smoothie.
Yeah, I don't know. So I disagree with you. I say Okposo was the clear upgrade, like over Pominville. I would definitely want the guy on the top power play, and I don't really care about even strength that much in this situation. Anyhow, Brian, so yeah, you've already given Sam Reinhart his credit. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly and Rasmus Ristolainen, if either of them were dropped during that bad schedule last week, you got to add them. They're great. Also, Brian, can I ask you, what's up with Robin Lehner? Like, do you know anything? I searched, I just couldn't find anything useful on Twitter, so I hope you have some better people that you follow that know the answer to this. So Lehner was a healthy scratch yesterday. He wasn't at practice today. Like, are we expecting him to play next week? And if he does, like, I would think he could be a sneaky ad with his team finally getting healthy. He has a 911 save percentage on the season, but he's been closer to 913 over the past couple of months. So, right about average, which would not be so bad, like, especially if your league count saves. He definitely will see a lot of rubber, and he's going to probably get some more goal support now that Eichel is back. So I feel like Leonard could be a good guy to own for the stretch run, but I have no idea what's up with him. Is he healthy, or is it going to be like Chad Johnson manning the net?
There is nothing that I've been able to find about what's going on with Robin Lehner. I can't find much on the reason that Lehner is not even dressing or playing in practices. The likeliest scenario, I think, is that he's resting or nursing some injury. Although Lehner, Elon, okay, here's another question. How many goalies do you think have been used more than Robin Lehner this year?
Is this like trivia time?
Yeah.
How many? This is more like a Family Feud question. I don't know what kind of question this is, but like, I don't know, 20.
Okay, so you're in the right neighborhood. He's the 18th most used goalie. I would have said in the top 10. I would have been wrong. So it's not like he needs a lot of rest. If I want to speculate and conspire a touch, I might give some weight to the suggestion that Robin Lehner is not a part of the Buffalo Sabres future, and so they don't need to see a whole lot from him right now. I wonder if this is all the small function of him just not likely being a Sabre at this time next year, or even in like 2 months from now. Lehner turns RFA once this year is done, and I'm not sure Buffalo wants to pay the near $4 million price tag for his services that he's been being paid this year, although I'm not sure many teams will, so he'll be an interesting free agent to watch. The thing is that it's not like Chad Johnson and Linus Ullmark are terribly legitimate alternatives either in the short or long term, so trying to get looks at them rather than starting Lehner, I'm not sure exactly what that does for the Sabres, except maybe it helps them tank a little bit better. Anyway, if Robin Lehner plays, then you can expect the same as always from him. Big risk, little reward between save percentage, goals against average, and wins, but you may like him for saves. Again, this is assuming that he does dress again.
Right. I think he's a little better than what you're saying. Like, if he does play, I don't think he's like a huge risk and little reward. Like I said, I think the Buffalo Sabres are going to score some goals. I think he might sneak in with a couple of wins. But if he plays, I don't know. I actually have him in my weekly league, which I'm going to the semifinals next week. I'm not sure if I should play him or not because I have no idea what his status is. Anyway, okay, let's go to the next outry in Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele.
Redo that. Anyway, let's go.
What happened?
Your sound keeps doing the thing.
Okay.
Have you ever heard it?
No. Well, when I edit,
listen to this edit point to.
Okay, no, I've heard it, but I don't know what you tell it to me as if I could do something about it. Like, I don't know.
You should look into it and try and fix it. I feel like if it was me
what would you do?
This was happening to, you would be trying to get me to like buy a new computer.
Okay, give me a suggestion of what to do.
I don't know. Just see what the cause might be.
Yeah. Okay. Step one.
Step one: Google.
Google what?
Well, listen to. How would you describe it?
A big loud sound.
Yeah, your sound like varies wildly and suddenly, like abruptly gets very loud.
Okay. Anyway,
on Google Hangouts.
I don't know why I like questioned you on this. Okay, let's.
I feel like it's not such a hard thing.
Okay, so let me. So where was I?
Anyways, you said let's move on. Something like, well, I told you your line, but now we've.
Okay.
Something like anyway onto Scheifele in Winnipeg or something.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's move on to our next outjury, which is in Winnipeg, where Mark Scheifele will be returning today. If you look at the clock right now, it's 8:20 and the game started at 7:30. So let's take a look and get a quick sense of what has happened so far. Patrick Laine, by the way, scored a goal. Power play assisted by Wheeler and Buffalo. So many good scores on Winnipeg. And yeah, they get another back in Mark Scheifele, who is back with the team, back on the top line, I'd assume, with Wheeler and Connor, or I don't even know if you call it the top line anymore. The practice lines today had that line, and then Stastny with Ehlers and Laine. So great news for Winnipeg getting healthy. Stastny, by the way, like I mentioned earlier, was day-to-day for a short stretch. He missed one game, then he came back the next game. It was a late scratch on Tuesday at Nashville, which, by the way, I hate. That's so hard, right? When people are scheduled to play the last minute, you happen to not have been looking, you don't have a chance to switch them out of your lineup. It's tough, but Stastny's into us, but he's back. He's playing with, like I said, Ehlers and Laine. Then you've got the third line of Kopp, Little, and Perreault today. Last week, we talked about how Brian Little might be worth a look with Scheifele out. He didn't do much for a couple of games. He did get a goal and an assist on Thursday versus Chicago. So for anyone who held on to him after 2-0 games, I doubt anyone did. Seems like obviously Brian Little's an obvious drop now as he's back to being the third line center. Last week, we also talked about Kyle Connor versus Matthew Perreault, like which one would be in the top six. At this point, clearly, Kyle Connor is the one you want, since he's back playing with Scheifele and Wheeler, and Matthew Perreault is on a third line with Little and Andrew Kopp. So take a look and see if Kyle Connor is available to you. Connor had 3 goals in his last 2 games, and like I said, will now be back on that amazing Scheifele and Wheeler line. So I think it's pretty much that simple, right? Like everyone in the Jets' top 6 should be owned, and then no other forwards should be owned. Does that pretty much sum it up for you?
That does sum it up. It's been unfortunate for anyone who was hoping for big production from Little or Perreault that they probably didn't quite deliver up to your expectations. As for anyone still in the top 6, you need to own them all. The tricky thing with Kyle Connor specifically is that if he's a free agent in your league and you're sorting through free agents, you're probably going to be fooled if you're looking at performance over whatever number of days you're looking at, 14, 30, because that chunk likely includes some time spent outside the top 6. But while in the top 6, Kyle Connor has been quite consistent. So he's a great play, and it's lovely that he's settled in to the top 6 in the lineup for now anyway. If you do manage to add him or have him on your team, he remains a guy whose deployment you need to consistently be checking if you do own him to make sure he's sticking where he is. Because if Kyle Connor is not in the top 6, he has not been delivering a whole lot.
Right, and that's the same for most players, right? Even your beloved Derek Brassard isn't able to do too much when he's not in the top 6, though he's been better lately, I know.
But my point is that Connor has moved up and down unannounced and for no apparent reason before, so you have to just be on your toes.
Yeah, for sure. And also, Connor doesn't have the same value that he had before when he was in the top 6, just because Paul Stastny has bumped him from the top power play, but still on a really good line. So someone you want to look at if he's in free agency. Though one concern with adding someone like Kyle Connor is that Winnipeg only plays Tuesday versus LA next week, and then Friday and Sunday versus Anaheim and Nashville. So especially if your lineup's already full on Tuesday, no point grabbing Kyle Connor just to sit on your bench on Tuesday, then wait till Friday for him to give you a game. You might want to just be strategic, wait until later in the week, stream him in at the end. Same goes maybe for Jacob Trouba, who has returned to the Jets as well. He returned from his ankle injury on Thursday. He put up 2 assists and 4 shots, a great return. And this was only in 14 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time, which I imagine will increase. They're probably just easing him in, and he still was able to put up 2 assists and 4 shots. I know, Brian, all throughout the year, you've been pretty down on Jacob Trouba, and for good reason. He's done nothing for most of the year after really breaking out at the end of last year and making a lot of people draft him and think he was going to be something special. But I know for myself, anyways, I'm going to be watch listing him for like a potential late week at, one sec. I know I'm going to watch list him for a potential late week ad. Like if he was available in any of my leagues, I would definitely want to consider him for that Friday, Sunday game. I know he's not on the top power play, but especially if hits and blocks are counted, he still is a pretty good player. It seems like capable of putting some shots on net and hopefully get a point or 2.
You love to love Jacob Trouba, and this is exactly what happens with Trouba always. He's rarely a difference maker, except when he is. So sometimes, as right now, you get excited because you think he might be starting a run that can keep going for a short while. But at the end of the day, he's a defensive defenseman, and you need to keep your expectations very low if you're hoping for offense. Peripherals are reasonable, the rest, not so much.
Okay, yeah, so I agree with you. Like, don't expect a ton of points, especially while he's not getting top power play time. But he can get you some points just because this Winnipeg team, it's like Pittsburgh or one of these teams that just scores so many goals that everyone seems to get in on the action every once in a while, which is also good if you're spot starting a Winnipeg goalie. You have a great chance of getting the win regardless of who he is. Like Steve Mason had a shutout before he got injured again. Hutchinson's even had a couple good starts. But right now, both Mason and Hutchinson are injured. So Mike Comrie has been called up. And Brian, you shared a tweet with me quoting Paul Maurice saying we should expect Comrie to play in at least 3 games over the next 3 weeks for the rest of the season. So I'm not saying obviously to go and rush to grab Mike Comrie, but keep him in your mind because he could be, it's Eric Comrie, isn't it?
I was just going to say, I feel like adding Mike Comrie might be a terrible move for your fantasy team. He doesn't play in the NHL, and if he did, he'd be probably not a very good goalie. But Elon, you're not far off. They're half brothers, Mike and Eric.
Oh, I did not know that, and I apologize. Why didn't you correct my notes while you were preparing? You saw that I wrote Mike Comrie there. Anyway, I guess I have that vestige of being a Sens fan that has these names in my head, unfortunately. Yeah, Eric Comrie, the goalie of the Winnipeg Jets, the current backup goalie. I think if he plays 3 games for the rest of the year, those are 3 good opportunities to spot start someone who will have a good chance at a win. So definitely keep your eye on him, start him. If you're in a league where people are constantly streaming in backup goalies to get a game or two, he should be on your, I guess, roster of potential ads.
For sure. Eric Comrie, 22 years old, late second rounder from 2013. He's holding down a .918 save percentage in 31 appearances with AHL Manitoba. But if he does get in the net, and it sounds like he will, Eric Comrie gets to 10 Schwein for a top 5 team in the league who just got their best defensive defenseman back. So yeah, I want those starts. I will spot him if I need one, and he's available as a free agent.
Okay, let's go to our next. Actually, let me just do that again. Okay, let's go now to our next outjury in Edmonton. Oscar Klefbom missed a couple of games right around when we recorded our last podcast. We were talking about if people should add Ethan Bear. Hopefully you listened to us and didn't pick up Ethan Bear. He did nothing last week, and I guess, he did nothing again today. Like, he was obviously not someone worth adding. Oscar Klefbom is back. Anyways, he put up a goal and an assist on his return on Wednesday versus San Jose. No points yesterday, but he had 4 shots on goal. No points today. Also, I'm taking a look now. Edmonton lost 3-1 to Tampa Bay, and Oscar Klefbom 5 shots, though, so he's trying. Sometimes it's hard to get the puck past Louis Domingue, I guess, and Edmonton wasn't able to solve him today, which was actually great for us, Brian, because our opponent in our joint league has Connor McDavid, who had pointless today, unlike his line mate, Ty Ratty, who scored a goal. So who would have had that as their guess of who was going to get more points between McDavid and Ratty today? Anyway, okay, back to, what am I talking about here? The defense? Edmonton is a 4-game week next week. If Klefbom was dropped, I think he's probably worth a go. I know that I keep saying, like, he's a guy who I say all the time on the podcast, you should probably add Oscar Klefbom, and he never seems to be that great, but he actually had like 4 points in his last 5 games before today. He's taking a ton of shots. He's on the top power play. Like, I know I keep saying it, and people probably keep getting annoyed that they pick him up and they don't do enough for them. So I'm not saying he's going to be amazing, but if Klefbom's been dropped, got 4 games this week, I'd definitely put him on my watch list, if not add him.
Yeah, like we said last week, it's not surprising to see Ethan Bear get reps on the top power play as the Oilers see what they've got with him in that spot and not a lot of stakes at play. But Oscar Klefbom is the one more likely to make use of that role. So I hope he gets there. I hope you add him. I hope he helps you. Elon, should I talk about Ty Ratty yet, or you want to talk about Nugent Hopkins first?
Well, we could talk about them together, because as we talk about Edmonton, we always need to go and take a look at the line combinations, because they're always different every episode. Currently, Connor McDavid is playing on the top line with Ryan Nugent Hopkins and Ty Ratty, which is great for both of them, right? It's good for anyone to play with Connor McDavid. Like Ryan Nugent Hopkins, when he came back from his injury, Brian, you were saying you're not so into him. I'm sure at the time you weren't considering that he would be the winger on McDavid's top line. Now, I'd imagine you're going to change your mind, right? Like, Ryan Nugent Hopkins has 4 goals and 3 assists in 7 games, at least going into today. It helped, like, playing with McDavid obviously helped. I'm not saying you were wrong, but I'd imagine you're going to tell people now, if Nugent Hopkins is still available, people have to grab him, right?
Yeah, they do. I love that when we talked about Nugent Hopkins most recently, I said not only that was RNH's first half scoring unsustainable, but followed that up with a very specific warning that if you're waiting for Nugent Hopkins to start suddenly playing with Connor McDavid, because he rarely ever has, get over it. It's not going to happen. And here we are. Boom. Ryan Nugent Hopkins is in the middle of a hefty stretch of playing with Connor McDavid and cashing in on the score sheet as a result. So yeah, as is the role with anyone playing with McDavid, go get him. And that brings us to Ty Ratty, who, if you're wondering who he is, he was drafted 32nd overall by St. Louis in 2011 and considered to be a reasonably well-placed prospect, except for the fact that he never seemed to be able to crack the St. Louis lineup. Sometimes it was blamed on him. Sometimes it was blamed on St. Louis's depth. In any case, they finally set him free. They waived him to Carolina after playing only 30 games for the Blues over parts of 4 seasons. And then Carolina saw him for 5 games, waived him over to Edmonton. And since arriving in Edmonton, Ty Ratty's steadily improved his scoring with their minor league affiliate. He has 21 goals, 22 assists for 43 points in 53 games with AHL Bakersfield. And now the 25-year-old is getting his turn with Connor McDavid. So yes, he is also worth a look in slightly deeper leagues. Like, I'd still prefer Nugent Hopkins, of course, over Ratty, but then Ratty's worth a look as per the McDavid rule.
Yeah, it's someone who you add and then you check before every game to make sure he's still practicing on that line. But why not grab him while he's there? Brian, also thanks that, like, it's very Brian, thanks to Chris in the chat room who is keeping us honest here. Apparently, beat writer Rob Tchaikovsky for the Edmonton Oilers just tweeted that Oscar Klefbom played his last game for the Oilers today, and now he is flying back to Edmonton to have shoulder surgery. So forget everything we said about adding Oscar Klefbom because he is done for the year.
So maybe you do want Ethan Bear or maybe Darnell Nurse. I'm not sure what happens. This is classic. Is it classic Edmonton? This is ridiculous. They said he was going to have Klefbom. He's going to have like 2 procedures over the course of a week or two, but they weren't going to affect his ability to play, and he was going to keep playing anyway, which seemed foolhardy at the time. And I guess cooler, calmer, more reasoned heads have prevailed and said if a player has an injury that he's undergoing procedures for and there are 0 stakes at play, then maybe it's best to just like give him some time off.
Yeah, that is definitely fair and whatever. But Brian, this sucks for us. We have Klefbom in our joint league. Only 3 ads per week. I guess one obvious ad now will be, or one obvious drop will be to drop Klefbom and pick someone up. By the way, Alex Edler is available in free agency, so I think he becomes the obvious ad for us. But I guess no one cares about that. But by the way, everyone, Alex Edler, God, peripherals, God, and finally Vancouver. I don't plan to talk about Vancouver today, so I might as well just say right now they finally got some points a couple of games ago. I guess it was yesterday. Even Daniel Sedin got a point, so I guess they can at least score a goal sometimes when Brock Besser is not in the lineup, and Alex Edler will get you your peripherals either way. But anyways, we're talking about Edmonton. Let's move on now to our next team, the Colorado Avalanche. Before we do that, actually, let's take a second to thank a sponsor for this week's episode, which are our friends over at SeatGeek. Okay, like now is the time to go see some NHL games. It's basically the playoffs for teams that are still in contention. If you want to go to a city where the team is not in contention and see their game, maybe see some young players. You'll see Ethan Bear try to be the top power play guy, and you could do some scouting for your draft next year. So it's definitely a really fun time to go to a game. So why not buy your ticket from our friends over at SeatGeek? Buying tickets can be complicated and confusing, but there's a better way to buy. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live event. There's nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. They actually you can sort the tickets by value, not by price. You can see whether or not you're getting a good deal or not. The app, super easy to use. And if you are thinking that you love the prices, but you'd love just a little bit less, you can get less. You can get less. How do you, that doesn't make sense. Oh. You can get
less.
I'll just go with it. You can get less. And by less, I mean less of a price on your ticket because you're a listener of Keeping Karlsson. Brian, why don't you tell our listeners how?
Okay, all they need to do is download the app, enter the promo code KEEPING, and they'll get $20 off their very first purchase with SeatGeek. Again, download the app, or you can go to the website too, enter the promo code KEEPING. You like value on your fantasy hockey players, you probably are going to like value on your hockey tickets as well. And that's why you could go SeatGeek with our promo code.
And that is keeping. But okay, Brian, let's keeping on going with the show. More outjuries. We got a ton of stuff to get to still. So we got to really put the pedal to the metal and go to Colorado and talk about Erik Johnson, who returned for the Avalanche today. I was excited to get him back. He's been great for me all year. I was really excited about him as my little sleeper guy at the start of the year. He wasn't getting many points. He was taking so many shots. He was on the ice. Like his plus minus was good. Like you could tell he was on the ice for goals and just having bad luck in terms of not getting in on them. And then he really went off, was getting points, still shooting a lot, getting blocks. Then he sort of went cold right around the time that McKinnon was injured. So I wonder if that was correlated. Now, finally, he returned today and did absolutely nothing against Detroit. Colorado won 5-1, and Erik Johnson had no points. He was +1. So once again, on the ice for a goal, but like no shots, no blocks. What? Erik Johnson, I'm going to need you to do better in the Cupful Finals if I make it, which I think I am going to. So I don't know. I'm very excited about that. But I'm not going to, by the way, Dustin, that was a really awesome matchup. If I win, I really enjoyed that matchup. And you probably got a little bit screwed out of the finals because the other matchup, we both would have beaten those guys for sure. But anyways, we'll see how Erik Johnson does moving forward. Or Brian, how about you tell us? You're the prognosticator. You're the, what did we call you? The poobah of prognostication. So tell us, what's the deal with Erik Johnson? Is he going to get back to being as good as he was before he got injured and a little bit bit before that, or is he going to go back to being like Erik Johnson, like not really fantasy relevant?
We've seen a few different versions of Erik Johnson over the course of the last couple of years. Over the last couple of years, we've seen fantasy irrelevant. We've seen peripherals but no production. We've seen peripherals and production. We've never seen production without peripherals, though. So at least those go hand in hand when they happen. So I'm not sure exactly what we're going to see from Johnson this time around. Although I know what I can hope for. First off, his cold streak before being injured was exactly the length of Nathan MacKinnon's injury. Of course, when MacKinnon came back, Johnson left the lineup, so there wasn't a chance to see if he'd snap out of it. And as you mentioned, goal scoring was down while MacKinnon was out, so that is reason to think that there are better conditions for any Av to collect points with MacKinnon in the lineup, which is the opportunity offered up to Erik Johnson now, who can generally be reliable for peripherals. Maybe he's just easing his way into the lineup, so we'll see if the points come. Out of 11 Avs games remaining, I would be hoping for like 4, 5, and then some shots and blocks. Remember, like, I don't know, I saw when the news came that he was back, I saw a few, whatever comments saying, are we sure he's ready? Like, he was supposed to be out a little longer. And if he's not quite ready, like if he's coming back a little bit banged up, not fully healed because the Avs are in a heated playoff race, then maybe some of those peripherals don't appear. Maybe he doesn't shoot quite as much or he doesn't block quite as much. So keep an eye on his peripherals. It's not an automatic until we see it start up again. And hopefully, Elon, for your sake and for his owner's sake, that will be soon. And that will be soon.
Right. And right. Well, at least you either have him stashed in your IR right now or he's in free agency, most likely. So you can maybe keep him in your IR for a little bit, maybe try to see another game out of him. Or if he's in free agency, don't rush to add Erik Johnson. Add him to your watch list for sure. And let's see if he can get those peripherals back, maybe get in on some points. He's not on either of the power play units anymore. So that's no fun for him. Sam Girard took that spot from him when he came over from Nashville. While we're on the Avs, Brian, no point talking about MacKinnon and Rantanen and all those guys. We talk about them all the time. They've been so amazing. We'll get into them like in the summer series and talk about how high these guys could actually go next year. Are they actually point per game? And in MacKinnon's case, like 100-point guys. But let's give some props to Semyon Varlamov. In his last 7 games before today, he had a combined like 925 save percentage. He won again today over Detroit, a 5-1 win. Let's see here. He stopped 37 of 38 shots. As Varlamov has been so clutch down the stretch. And of course, with MacKinnon back, that means there's going to be a lot more goal support for him, just like Eichel over in Buffalo helping his goalies. Now Varlamov's going to have some goals happening in front of him, as he has been getting, and he seems to be on a roll right now. I feel like if you're in a shallow league where Varlamov isn't owned, I think Varlamov is like definitely worth a look, in my opinion. Brian, I'm going to ask you about some other goalies later on, and maybe I'll go Varlamov versus this guy, Varlamov versus that guy, and we can start to figure out where we rank him. But I would rank him very highly in terms of goalies that might be available. I don't think you can get much better. I think he's on a roll. I think Colorado's a good team. I think Colorado scores a lot of goals. Like, I don't really see much wrong with adding Semyon Varlamov right now.
Semyon Varlamov is putting up his second best Delta save percentage since joining the Avs in 2011-2012, and just the third positive Delta save percentage in that time. So it's not like it's a great season amongst great seasons. Varlamov is also top 10 in goals saved above average per 60 minutes this season. So yeah, like if you don't know what those numbers are, essentially what they're saying is that Varlamov is doing a pretty good job with the work that's being asked of him, and that Varlamov is outperforming what you'd expect an average NHL goalie to be putting up in the exact same situation. And that's something that Varlamov hasn't done in the last 3 seasons before this one, even when you account for the poor quality of the team that's been in front of him. But certainly the Avs seem more functional this year than they've been in a fair amount of time, and that can't hurt. So it's good for Varlamov, good for Colorado, and we will assess his exact value and where he's tiered. Probably, I don't know if we'll get to him again before the end of this season, but he will be an interesting guy to talk about, well, I guess throughout the rest of this episode when you ask me to rank him against others, and to talk about in the offseason and in advance of next season when we try and figure out what Colorado is going to look like next year. What a jump they've made.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people didn't draft guys like McKinnon and of course Varlamov because they were just like because Colorado. Like they're so bad, there's no point having guys on their team, and they've really proven everyone wrong. McKinnon can do that, and Varlamov's a good goalie. When he's healthy, he's good. He's been relatively healthy this year, aside from a couple short stretches. So I mean, good for him, good for the fantasy owners who went and added him and are reaping the rewards right now in their fantasy playoffs. Maybe a potential playoff MVP for some people. Okay, next outro I want to talk about is James Neal, who finally returned to the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday after missing 8 games. He played again today, and I believe he scored a goal. Yes, James Neal. Oh no, he assisted on a goal by William Karlsson. So Neal actually took a spot on the top line with Marchessault and William Karlsson. That's a place where a lot of people have been taking turns at. Alex Tuck, Thomas Tatar, David Perron, all failed to do anything over the past week, taking Riley Smith's spot on that top line. Neal did nothing himself on Friday versus Minnesota, but an assist today. So it's something, and it's nice to see, by the way, this line finally doing something. Jonathan Marchessault had a hat trick today after, oh no, finally doing something. William Karlsson had a hat trick today after being cold for a bit. Jonathan Marchessault was pointless for 7 straight games going into today, but now Marchessault got an assist, got himself back on the board. I was actually planning on asking you, Brian, about a bunch of Vegas players just to be like, oh, is it time? Has the bubble finally burst? Maybe now's the time. Like, you know, a lot of people were predicting that they would be regressing at some point throughout the year because they were having such high shooting percentages. I was wondering if this is actually now the time that regression is hitting, or if it's just a cold streak. Obviously, this game against Calgary today is a point in the favor of saying that Vegas is just fine and this top line is still really good. Curious to see what you think moving forward. Like, also, I was going to ask you about Marc-Andre Fleury, who has been struggling a bit lately. At least he had 2 straight bad games, which is very rare for him. And I was worried maybe he'd be a scary guy to own moving forward. Not scary, but not the super reliable guy he was earlier on. And especially with Malcolm Subban back from IR. I even thought Subban was going to play today, but it turned out that Marc-Andre Fleury got the start and he got a shutout. So who knows right now with Vegas? Like, everyone seems good and everything seems fine. So I'm not even sure what there really is to talk about on Vegas, but I know you've prepared some stuff. So why don't you tell me what you think about the Vegas Golden Knights at this point?
Well, you wanted to know if I thought the whole team was slumping as they deserve to do, or if, well, no, I guess that's a conflation, a mixing of the two things you were asking me. You were asking me if it was random that suddenly Vegas wasn't scoring so much, or if it was the regression. It's probably a bit of both. But for some specific players, like, say, Jonathan Marchessault, who isn't really supposed to be on such a cold streak as he's been. I mean, I was for all Vegas guys at one point thinking, sorry. I mean, I've definitely flipped on Vegas since the first couple months of the year when I was like, this isn't going to last. I was wrong. They're really stepping up now. And if there's one guy I've believed in most the whole way through, and I believe the tape would prove this, it would be Jonathan Marchessault. So I don't think that he's necessarily facing a regression correction. Maybe the lack of assists to some extent, sure, as his other teammates experience some lower shooting percentages than they've been able to see for the rest of the year. But on the whole, for Marchessault and for most of the Golden Knights, it's been a cold streak. And while it's really inconvenient timing, you definitely, like, well, now they've scored 4 goals. So all that stuff about maybe dropping them is right out the window. Like, if you were thinking of dropping them for Poso or Pominville or someone like that, no way. I would still hang on to them. Marc-Andre Fleury, though, is an interesting one. Since January 21st, Vegas has played 24 games. Oh, no. Elon, I messed up.
Why?
I just need to double check this stat because I left a number out.
Okay. So you do that.
Just a second.
So apparently, oh man, Lettinen just let in 2 goals on 6 shots. I don't know what to do. My goalies in my weekly league, I have Bishop. I have Bishop and Leonard, who, like, now Leonard, we're talking about, we don't even know if he's going to play next week. Bishop is injured. I just dropped Leonard for Lettinen, and now I'm seeing Lettinen's doing terribly today. So I don't know what to do. I have Varlamov and no one else. Got to figure I just dropped Lundqvist. Oh my God. I don't know. But anyways, okay, I'll figure that out. Brian, are you ready now?
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Just a sec. Okay. Since January 21st, Vegas has played 27 games, and Marc-Andre Fleury has started 25 of them. Only 2 times since January 21st, over 27 games, has someone other than Fleury headed for the Golden Knights crease to start a game, and that's a lot of hockey. I wonder, like, yes, he got a shutout today, so maybe it's all forgotten, but I think that the amount of work that Fleury is taking on is starting to show. He's posted only a 915 since that January 21st mark, and that number is where it is as high as it is because the front end of that stretch is pretty loaded with some of his better starts over those 25 starts. Vegas currently holds a 6-point lead on the Pacific Division, and the Western Conference lead seems all but out of the question, certainly going to be won by Nashville. So it seems like a good time to let a backup spell Fleury every now and again, and I would be a little worried as a Fleury owner if he doesn't get that rest, because it's looking like he could use it. I know the shutout today goes against that, but his save percentage has not been as good over the last 10, 15 games as it has been most of the rest of the season. So if you're a Fleury owner, you sort of have two things to worry about. One is him suddenly getting rested, and the other is that if he doesn't get rested, can he still perform? Today he proved he can, but he's got to be getting tired.
Yeah, well, now with Malcolm Subban back, it makes sense that Vegas is going to give him some games, you would think, though Vegas only plays Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday of next week, so they could just go Fleury all the way. For someone like, while you say like his owners would like for him to get the rest, at the same time, if you're in your semifinals or whatever next week, you kind of just want Fleury to play all the games. He'll rest and you'll be eliminated by the time he reaps the rewards of that rest. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens next week. I wouldn't be surprised if Subban gets in at least one game next week. Okay, next ouchery, but this is an ouchery and then an injury, apparently. Ben Bishop returned for Dallas on Friday after missing 5 games. He took a 3-2 overtime loss to Ottawa, in which his .880 save percentage probably isn't a fair representation of how he played. There was this overtime goal against. It would have been .917 save percentage if Mike Hoffman hadn't scored that overtime goal. Anyways, now it looks like Ben Bishop is hurt again. He re-aggravated his injury. Kari Lehtinen is in today right now for the game against Winnipeg, and already 2 goals against for Kari Lehtinen on 7 shots at this point. So not a great start for Lehtinen, but I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe this is just because he wasn't expecting to play today and he wasn't warmed up properly, or who knows. Like Winnipeg's also like such a really good team, but I don't know, Brian. Like I'm not. It's another one where like just like the Fleury situation, I had one thing planned to talk about, and now everything's been flipped all around. I guess people need to rush back and add Kari Lehtinen just in case Bishop is going to be out long term. Like Dallas is a good team, I think. And next week they play Washington on Tuesday, and they play Boston on Friday and Vancouver on Sunday. So maybe you could wait on Lehtinen and try to get him for the Friday, Sunday games, or maybe by then we'll learn more about what's going to happen with Bishop. Though, of course, at that time, like someone else could have already added him or something else could happen. So I don't know, Brian. What do you think right now? I was going to ask you Bishop versus Varlamov for the rest of the season. I guess now you got to go Varlamov since at least he's healthy.
Yeah, that makes the answer pretty easy. And just to correct, as of the time that we're speaking about Bishop's injury, you said he re-aggravated an injury. I think that's a fair assumption, but we don't really know. I mean, Dallas is in a really tough spot right now. They're in the most important stretch of their season, trying to stay in the playoff race, and they are flailing. They got that awful, just soul-crushing 7-6 loss against Toronto, and then any loss to Ottawa is soul crushing as they lost 3-2 in overtime. And they might have thought that Ben Bishop coming back was going to help them, even if he wasn't 100%. And it looks like that could have backfired. Maybe they should have given him a couple more days rest. We'll see what the prognosis is. We'll see what exactly happened. But in the meantime, between him and Varlamov, and well, let's say Lehtinen and Varlamov, you want Varlamov.
Yeah, definitely. Though, if Varlamov's not available, Lehtinen is someone to look at if Bishop is going to be out long term. So that's definitely something you should be keeping your eye on if you need a goalie going into your final weeks. Brian, we might need a goalie actually for our joint team. That's something that we should look into right after we're finished recording. Okay, next goalie ouchery. How about Antti Ranta, who finally returned for Arizona yesterday after missing 6 games and predictably had a really strong outing. He stopped 30 of 32 shots, but Arizona lost 3-1 to Minnesota. I know I've said this many times on the podcast, but if you're looking for goals against average, save percentage, and saves, there are likely no better goalies potentially available in your free agency than Antti Ranta. So go get him, like while he's healthy. The risk is that he might be scheduled to play a game and then get swapped out last minute and go day-to-day for 2 weeks, just like he did to us a couple weeks ago. And that was really annoying. We never knew when he was going to come back. But assuming he's healthy, Brian, how about we compare Ranta to Varlamov? I know those two guys are probably in similar tiers for a lot of people, play goalies on teams that are not necessarily so great, though I think that Colorado is a better team, but also I think that Ranta might be expected to put up better percentage numbers. I don't know. So what do you think? Ranta versus Varlamov, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I have a little more faith in Ranta's rate stats, but Varlamov has a much better chance at a win on any given night. So I will take Varlamov. Thank you very much.
Okay, and also heads up, Clayton Keller has been reminding us of his early season form by putting up points in almost every single game again. It's so long ago, Brian. Remember when there wasn't a game that Clayton Keller wouldn't put up points? And it was like, when is it going to end? And then it ended, and it ended abruptly, and then it never really started again until now. Keller has 8 points in his last 9 games. He's been playing on a line with Panic and Derek Stepan. Arizona has 4 games next week. What could you want, really, in a potential free agent ad? Obviously, if Clayton Keller's available, you might want to go for him. I can't think of any reason not to add him for next week, right?
Neither can I.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about Christian Dvorak. You made a comment here being like, you ask me this too often, but I'll just point out Christian Dvorak continues to produce. He has 5 goals in his last 9 games. He's playing on a line with Max Domi and Brendan Perlini, which I guess is line 2. So I'm into Christian Dvorak. Also, if you can't get Clayton Keller, you want to take advantage of these 4 Arizona games. I don't know how many goals they're going to score, but if they do score a goal, it seems like there's a good chance that Christian Dvorak might get in on it since he's been scoring so many goals lately.
Yeah, he has 5 goals on his last 24 shots, which isn't like an insane shooting percentage. It's still a little high. But Elon, as you have been banging the Christian Dvorak drum several times over the last couple months, rightfully so. He's a good ad in a deep league.
Okay, and I've got one more outjury, and then we'll get into injuries. This is a potential outjury. Matt Murray returned to practice on Saturday for Pittsburgh. Hasn't been ruled out yet for Tuesday's game. So definitely something to keep in mind if you were planning to ride Jari or DeSmith next week, trying to figure out which one to play. Maybe neither. Maybe it's Matt Murray back, and he'll just keep going for Pittsburgh, hopefully, until the end of the season and far into the playoffs, because I have my Penguins bet to win the cup. That would make me a nice sum of money. I wouldn't mind it. But okay, of course, just like with Edmonton, I always like to look at the Penguins lines whenever we check in on the Penguins, because there's always so much potential for those random players playing with the superstars. When we were last looking at them on Friday, we were seeing Crosby with Gensel and Sheary, Hagelin with Hornqvist and Malkin, and then Brassard with Kessel and Brian Rust. So guys like Gensel and Sheary, always interesting since they've been doing nothing lately. They're probably available in free agency and playing with Sidney Crosby. So you could probably grab one of them. Who knows which one? Probably Gensel if you're going to get one of them. But who knows how long they'll stay with Crosby. Like I said, they haven't been doing anything lately, but in a really good spot. Then you've got Hagelin, Rust, and Derek Brassard all on 2-game point streaks after not having done much previously. So I don't know if that means they're more likely to continue getting points or if that means they're going to now slow down and guys like Gensel and Sheary will start getting points. I'll bet you one of these 5 players, Gensel, Sheary, Hagelin, Rust, or Brassard, like one of them is going to have a really good week next week, and we'll be able to say we were really smart for recommending them, but I don't know which one. I don't even have a specific question for you here, Brian, because it's always the same question. I'm just letting you guys know the information, and then I feel like it's up to you to decide who you want. The one playing with Crosby, the one playing with Malkin, the one playing with Kessel. You choose.
Yeah, if you can't yet read the Pittsburgh Penguins situation with the info that you, Elon, generally present on the show, then you can go back and listen to like every other Keeban Karlsson episode ever. Like we have the McDavid rule in Edmonton. We have just like the general Pittsburgh Penguin rule that you essentially just summarized, Elon, very aptly.
Yeah, though I think that with Pittsburgh, it's a little different. Like the McDavid rule is that you want the player playing with McDavid for sure. On Pittsburgh, like, I don't know. You might want Gensel, you might want Sheary, you might want Hagelin, but maybe not. Like there's good potential there if you're playing like in FanDuel or whatever. You know, you grab them for a day, you could probably get one of these players for really cheap, and then they might produce or they might do nothing. They might get shifted down to a crappy line. Who knows? Okay, but there is one guy that I wanted to ask you about on Pittsburgh who I haven't really heard anyone talk about before. I'm not sure if I've heard of him. His name sounds kind of familiar. His name is Jamie Oleksiak. He's a defenseman on the team, and he has 4 points in his last 5 games. So, Brian, who's this Jamie Oleksiak? He also hits a lot. He has 19 hits in his last 5 games. Should people's and bankers leagues be taking note and considering adding Jamie Oleksiak for Pittsburgh's really good 4-game schedule next week if they need a defenseman who also hits?
You might be more familiar with Jamie Oleksiak's sister, Canadian Olympian swimmer, who won all kinds of medals in the 2016 Rio Olympics. Oleksiak, the hockey player, male, was reasonable in Dallas at the start of his career as a bottom 4 guy. Been that for the last couple of years. Before the last 2 years, he had a couple cups of coffee with the Stars. But now he's being used a bit more in Pittsburgh than he was back in Dallas, to the tune of another 2 minutes and 20 seconds per night. So that's kind of a big deal for a defenseman. And that's what's helping Oleksiak rack up these peripherals. So if you need them, go ahead and get him. But the points aren't going to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess there's always the potential to get points playing on Pittsburgh, just like I said about some other high-scoring teams earlier, but I wouldn't bank on it from Jamie Oleksiak. Brian, I see you wrote in the notes here on my side. You're not supposed to write on my side of the notes, but I see you wrote, how about Mike Smith as another goalie outjury? I think we talked about him last week, though. Do you have something more you want to say about Mike Smith?
Oh, no. He's had a really hard time just like getting going again. Another loss today. Seems like he has not found his groove again. He seemed like he had after like 10 minutes of letting in goals in his first game back, but still not quite up to speed, it seems. So that's not good for Calgary's chances or your chances in your fantasy hockey league if you have been counting on a super reliable save percentage that he has been offering most of the year. Hopefully you can get back on track this week.
Yeah, well, it was good news for our fantasy team, Brian, because in our joint league, our opponent has Mike Smith, and we might come down to like that loss today, making the difference. It's very close as we go. You guys listening, you're lucky that we're even recording this podcast, because I'm very tempted to just go and watch the scoreboards and see if we're going to be making the finals or not. But we're going to keep going now into some injuries. We're like an hour in, and we haven't gotten to injuries left. We're like an hour in, and we haven't even gotten to injuries yet. So let's finally get started in Boston. They've gotten hit hard lately. Deja vu for me of the end of last season, where Boston were easy pickings for the Sens with key players hurt. Kind of seems like it's happening again. Hopefully these guys will get healthy for them when the time comes where it matters. But like, okay, so Patrice Bergeron is still out. I haven't heard any indication of when he'll be returning. Jake DeBrusk suffered an upper body injury on Tuesday, missed the rest of the week. No word yet on when he'll be back. David Backes was suspended. Then he returned from his suspension. Then he almost got suspended again. Like, news was he was potentially going to get suspended. Then it turned out he didn't get suspended. But then yesterday he suffered a laceration above his knee during the game against Tampa Bay and was pulled from the game. And according to Coach Bruce Cassidy, he said there was no structural damage, but the timetable for healing is unknown. So I guess karma got David Backes, and he might miss some time. Then we have Zdeno Chara. He's hurt, missed Thursday and Saturday. McAvoy is still out, of course. That's a lot of players missing on Boston. With all of this, the Bruins still pulled off a 3-0 shutout win over Tampa yesterday. So go figure. It's like, I would have assumed this is the chance to make a bet on the Lightning to have a chance to win at home versus Boston with all these injuries. But no, they killed him. They destroyed him 3-0. They didn't have a chance. Anyway, so now we take a look at Boston going into next week. They have a great schedule: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, one of the best schedules you can have. So I guess we have to look at who this benefits. One key player who gets to benefit from this David Backes injury is Riley Nash, who gets to stay on line one, because it looked like yesterday it was David Backes playing with Marchand and Pasternak, and Riley Nash had been bumped. But then after Backes got injured, Riley Nash reclaimed his line one center spot. So I'd imagine he's worth adding if he's still available. Maybe not. Like, maybe he won't be available since people were excited about him when he got on the top line before, and he's not a guarantee to stay there. As we've seen, Boston might try to find someone else, but now they have one less player to potentially center that top line. Also, I guess you have like Krejci and Rick Nash, who I don't know if they'll be available. Maybe not. Like, they're owned in most of the leagues that I'm in. I guess the next player to potentially look at is Danton Heinen. He's been quiet for a while, but he's taken Jake DeBrusk's spot on line two with Krejci and Rick Nash. And Heinen has 3 and 5 shots in each of his last 2 games, so no points, but he is taking some shots, and he does have a better opportunity back in the top 6. So, Brian, are any of these players who I've mentioned interesting to you? Like, is Danton Heinen even worth looking at, or would you wait to see him actually produce? Like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, great schedule if he could get some points.
Danton Heinen is interesting as a deeper ad. I guess that's as far as I'm willing to go. Heinen had just 7 shots in 8 games leading into these last 2, where he's had 8 shots over 2 games. He also has just 2 points in his last 17 games. That's really, obviously, it can't be much worse than that for Danton Heinen, with huge cuts to his ice time along the way. So he could be a real Hail Mary, but he's been really good earlier this year in that second line spot. So if you are desperate, if you're digging deep, Heinen is worth a look, especially if his second line deployment can stick. Also, Elon, just in general, Boston visiting Tampa on the road, so many regulars missing. What a huge statement that 3-0 win was for the Bruins, making themselves look like the most formidable of playoff opponents as we wind through the regular season home stretch. And one huge piece of that win was Tuukka Rask. He looked fantastic, totally up to the task of saving his limping team's bacon. And I'm saying all this really to just get to Torrey Krug, who assisted on all 3 goals. I don't know if anyone realizes this, but Torrey Krug is now on pace for a 60-point season. And this would be the first 60-point season by a Boston defenseman since Ray Bourque back in 1995, 1996, over 20 years since a Boston defenseman has been able to manage that. We'll see if Krug can finish the job. Thanks to Ty Anderson of WEEI for that little nugget. But back to your question, Heinen good as a deeper ad. And yeah, Riley Nash gets maybe a save execution on your roster now that Backes is out, and he still might be needed in the top 6.
And of course, we don't know how long Backus will be out. And if he's dropped, he might be someone you want to add. If he gets on that top line with Marchand and Pasternak, again, when healthy, he could look good. And like I said, there's a long week ahead. Maybe by Friday, Backus comes back. So add him to your watch list if he gets dropped. Okay, let's, Brian, now go to Minnesota. Really tough injury. Jared Spurgeon is expected to miss a minimum of 4 weeks, which basically means the rest of the regular season. He suffered a partial tear of his right hamstring on Tuesday night. Brian, we traded a draft pick to get him in our joint league just to get a little insurance of a nice, reliable defenseman. Now he's gone, but whatever. We'll be able to win anyways, hopefully. I don't know. But anyways, bummer of a way for Spurgeon to end his regular season. He ends the year with 37 points in 61 games, which is a 50-point pace. Not 60 points like Krug, but still a 50-point pace for Jared Spurgeon. I'm sure most people did not expect that going into the year. He'll likely be a really good sleeper pick in drafts next year, especially for people who just look at total numbers and not point paces, because Spurgeon had a really great year. Of course, this opens up a big opportunity for Matt Dumba to join Ryan Suter on the top D pairing and also on the top power play. In 2 games since Spurgeon was injured, Matt Dumba scored a goal against Vegas, and he had a power play assist versus Arizona, and he had 4 and 6 shots in those 2 games. Also played around 28 minutes in each of those games. So Matt Dumba really getting a huge uptick in his ice time, in his opportunities, taking a ton of shots, getting points. How could you not want Matt Dumba? I guess the only thing you might not want about him is his schedule. And I see you've written in the notes here that you want to talk about that. So why don't you tell us about Matt Dumba and his schedule for next week?
Well, I wanted it because it seems like such a slam dunk. What more can I say? Dumba has proved himself the last time Spurgeon was out to be a reliable producer and a helpful fantasy piece. And so I'm not surprised he's doing it again now. Minnesota's actually lucky to have Dumba, Spurgeon, Suter. Like, they have a few guys who can man the top power play and contribute all around. And Pulleys are lucky to have those options potentially in free agency. But yeah, the schedule does hurt with Minnesota playing Monday and then not again till Saturday or Sunday. So if you do add Matt Dumba, you'll put yourself in a position where you have to decide to hold or drop him for someone you can get more games played out of between Tuesday and Friday. So keep that in mind with any Wild player you own past Monday's games this week. Of course, if you have unlimited moves in your league per week, then there's nothing against you adding him and then just dropping him and trying to re-add him. The question is, does he stay in free agency if he has another great game Monday? Just an extra little game you're going to have to play if you want Matt Dumba on your team.
Yeah, like, I think the harder question is, if you have him now, if you've already done the obvious thing and added Matt Dumba, do you hold him after Monday? Like you said, he doesn't play again until Saturday. You could take a Penguin or like one of these many Penguins that we've talked about that might do well, or a Vancouver Canuck player. I don't know. Daniel Sedin might have been dropped, but I probably wouldn't add him. But yeah, those teams both play 3 times between Tuesday and Friday. Well, you'd be getting nothing from Matt Dumba or anyone that you add on Minnesota. I'm going to ask you about Charlie Coyle in a second. Same situation with him. So, like, Brian, what's your general strategy? Like, let's say you're in a typical, 12-team league. Dumba's in free agency. You have him on your team. You're obviously going to hold him for Monday's game. I don't know, like, let's say, and you decide you want to take the risk and drop him. I'm not going to ask like such a general question of should you drop him or not. But let's say you decide to take the risk. When do you add him back? Like, I feel like if you wait all the way until Saturday morning, that might be tough. Maybe drop him for someone playing like Tuesday, Thursday, and then hope that you can grab him back Friday morning. Do you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
It's like you're playing chicken against your opponents in your league, and you're trying to decide who's going to bite first. I remember a couple years ago, Gabriel Landeskog got suspended right near the end of the regular season. We knew he'd be coming back for just like the last week, and he was dropped in a lot of leagues. I know a lot of people were wondering, like, oh man, I don't want to add him now. I want to add someone else who's going to play, but he'll be so much better than the free agents. It might be a similar situation with Dumba or Zach Parise, or like there's many guys on Minnesota who are scoring right now. I wonder like in which leagues these players are going to get dropped. Like, tweet at us, actually. I'd be curious to know, at Keeping Karlsson. Let us know which Minnesota player is dropped after Monday and when you're planning on adding them back. I always think this is an interesting part of fantasy hockey strategy. And yeah, so I mentioned Charlie Coyle. He is a 6-game point streak going, even though he's been playing on line 3 with Matt Cullen and Tyler Ennis. So I wouldn't have expected this from him. Is there any way he can keep this up for the next couple of weeks once Minnesota gets back playing again? You were into Charlie Coyle when he came back from injury in November. And I remember being surprised. Like, you said you'd think at least like 55 points or whatever. I thought, what? Charlie Coyle? No way. But you were right at the start. Like, he had a really strong start when he came back. Then he was doing nothing for a while. And now he's on a hot streak again. So do you think this current production from Charlie Coyle, is it sustainable or fleeting?
Well, you can expect at least a half point per game out of Charlie Coyle, like for starters, regardless of what he's doing lately. But the extra lemonade that Charlie Coyle is making out of his lemony line 3 deployment sure is sweet. It's not a good one for me.
That was good. I was about to say that was really good.
Thanks. 6 of Coyle's 7 points on this run have been primary points. That means either the goal or the first assist, so that's nice. But Cole's but Coyle's 3 goals have come on just 13 shots, which is certainly a little more worrisome. I'd be fine to add him as a deeper option on Monday if Coyle is the best Wild player available. Like, I'd rather Parise if he's available. Maybe Koivu. I think that would be an interesting one, Elon, between Koivu and Coyle. I think I'd probably lean Koivu for his power play time. But anyway, you could add Coyle on Monday for 1 game audition, but maybe he becomes much more interesting to you in Monday. But maybe he becomes much more interesting to you when Minnesota plays their back-to-back games on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, for the record, I would take Mikko Koivu over Charlie. For the record, I would definitely take Koivu over Charlie Coyle if I had the option for either of them. I was thinking more for deeper leagues where someone like Koivu is available. You got to take the guy in the top 6 and on the top power play, I think, personally. Anyway, but Coyle, he keeps proving me wrong. Like, he's more reliable than I thought he would be. That's for sure. Like, you saying he's for sure going to give you half point per game. I don't know if I would have been ready to agree with you like a few weeks ago on that, but it seems like you've been right. So, okay, next injury. Let's talk about Matthew Tkachuk, who's been out with an upper body injury for the past couple of games for the Calgary Flames. He's going to at least miss today's game and Monday's game, and then we'll see from there. Not as big a blow to his owners as I originally assumed. He's actually gone pointless in 4 games before he got hurt. So, like, he's still been getting great ice time and taking shots. So I'd imagine it was just a cold streak and an obvious guy. Like, people have to, once Matthew Tkachuk comes back, you got to reactivate him right away. Like, he's not like a Eric Johnson situation where maybe you keep him in your IR and you wait to see if he could do well, right? Like, or are you concerned at all by this 4-game pointless streak before his injury?
No, not terribly concerned. It's unfortunate we won't get to see him bounce back potentially, or we'll need to at least wait on it. But no, not concerned.
Okay, and then with Tkachuk injured, we could take a look at the Calgary Lions today. And since they got shut out 4-0, it looks like, as I'm seeing now on the Dobber Frozen Pools line combos, they shook things around. At one point, the game was supposed to have Furland on the top line with Monahan and Gaudreau, and Furland was also playing on the top power play, but it looks like Gaudreau and Monahan had their line mates switched at some point, and I see like Gaudreau with Brouwer and Backlund for a bit. I don't know how long this happened. Anyways, hard to say whenever a team loses like this if they're going to shake things up for the next game, but I was going to say that people should consider Furland as an ad once again if he's going to be on the top line, top power play. It also looks like Furland wasn't on the top power play today. So I don't know, forget about him. Actually, forget about everyone on Calgary. I guess that's not the obvious person. Like Christopher Stieg and Troy Brouwer were both on the top power play today as well. But like, come on, I'm not going to recommend adding either of those guys, right? And by the way, I think TJ Brody got injured today, but he's probably not owned in any leagues either. So it's just the obvious guys: Gaudreau, Monahan, Hamilton, and Giordano. Am I missing anyone? I think that's it.
No, but with Calgary's Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, Michael Furland could be worth something to you. As, like, I'm going to say, Christopher Stieg, look, he has not had a great season, just 8 points in 22 games before he got injured back in November, and is now back, just played his first game against San Jose. Oh, I guess he played again against Vegas today and still didn't do anything. But there's still the possibility that he does do something if you're in a very deep league, although I would still go Furland first. Though I checked deployment. I haven't seen how they use their lines today.
Yeah, I guess see who's on the top line. Obviously, it's good to be with Gaudreau and Monahan, but yeah, I don't really have anything exciting to say about Calgary right now. Hopefully, Tkachuk will be back and everything will go back to normal. Okay, next injury, Anthony DeAngelo is hurt on the Rangers. Generally, this wouldn't be worth bringing up, but it's relevant right now because in his absence, we've had a breakout from another random Rangers defenseman that nobody had heard of. We talked about John Gilmour before. He's back to being a nobody again. Obviously, you don't have him anymore. If you do, then like I don't know what you're doing. Like get rid of John Gilmour, but maybe now you need to go and add Neil Pionk, who has a great name, by the way. Really fun to say. And he's been currently being the top power play quarterback of the Rangers, and he has 6 assists in his last 4 games. So people have got to be at least taking a look right now at Neil Pionk, especially with the Rangers offense really cooking lately. Brian, who is this guy? And are you into him? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, obviously, Kevin Shattenkirk could potentially threaten to take his spot back. It was seeming like Shattenkirk was going to be back soon, but apparently he had a setback. So I'll bet you it's going to be another week at least where Neil Pionk will have a chance to play on the top power play with the red hot Mika Zibanejad, who we'll get to in a bit. But first, Brian, let's talk about Pionk. I just wanted to keep saying his name a little bit. Neil Pionk. Who is he?
It's a great name to say and a great name on a jersey too. Neil Pionk is, well, we actually mentioned him in passing when he was initially called up to the Rangers. That was when John Gilmour was the Rangers blue line potential hotness of the moment, even though that did not last very long, as we sort of predicted. Though for his part, John Gilmour hasn't been doing much offensively, but still getting 2 or 3 shots each and every night. So that's good news for him if you need shots and are in a super deep league. But back to Pionk, who was considered a legit offensive defenseman candidate at the time of his call-up and has proven it to some extent in his first pro season, beginning with 17 points in 48 games with AHL Hartford and now up to 10 points in 18 NHL games. Pionk is an undrafted native of Omaha, Nebraska, and he was the University of Minnesota Duluth's top defensive point getter in his final college year just last season. He's a good skater, can move the puck, and sure should be allowed to keep running the Rangers power play for as long as it's working for everyone.
Yeah, and he's especially I always say I don't know how to. I need to take a course on how to host a podcast. I feel like we just did this, and now I say at the end of every single thing. I'll bet you there's a trick that people use to say something interesting every time. I'm gonna try. Okay. And of course, Pionk is especially appealing, like I said, because the Rangers have a lot of players doing well right now. And we got to start with Mika Zibanejad, who's put now out 3 straight multi-point games and has 10 points in his last 6 games. So Zibanejad is red hot. He's likely not available to you. If he is, pause the podcast right now. Go ahead, Mika Zibanejad, ASAP. It would be crazy not to have him. I don't even care if the Rangers don't have the most exciting schedule next week. You need to have Mika Zibanejad in there. But maybe if he's not available, you could grab one of his line mates, Chris Kreider or Jesper Fast. Kreider had 2 assists at St. Louis yesterday. He had a goal and 3 assists versus the Penguins in the previous game on Wednesday. 3 of those 6 points that Kreider has had recently were on the power play. He's not shooting as much as I'd like, but hey, points are points. You probably want to grab Chris Kreider while he's on this top power play and playing with Zibanejad. And if you're in a deeper league and Chris Kreider isn't available, how about this Jesper Fast? He's got to be worth a look at this point. I would think he has 5 points his last 5 games since getting on the first line. This seems like a clear case of coattail riding to me. Like, I don't think anyone thinks that Jesper Fast is doing this on his own. And if he moves back to another line for someone like Pavel Buchnevich, and obviously you would drop him, but for right now, maybe go and grab Jesper Fast. So take a look at the schedule, make sure you'd actually be able to fit him into your lineup.
Yeah, going back to Kreider, you ideally want shots and hits to go with points from Kreider, and he has not been providing those at all. Just 5 hits and 7 shots for Kreider in his last 6 games. Those are garbage peripheral numbers, especially from someone like him. But like you said, Elon, you can't complain while he's putting up multi-point nights. Another person on the Rangers in the Kreider vein, how about Pavel Buchnevich? Waking up to, like Chris Kreider, peripherals are not there. He's been getting mostly 1 shot, occasionally 2 shots each game. But again, that's forgivable when Buchnevich is putting up 5 assists in his last 3 games, and 3 of those 5 have come on the power play.
Yes, one sec. Let me just say the line now since you brought it up. Okay. Yeah, Buchnevich is on a line with Nemesnikov and Jimmy Vesey, which isn't very exciting to me, though he is on that top power play, like you said. So he's definitely worth a look, but I would definitely take Kreider over Buchnevich at this point. Maybe Jesper Fast versus Buchnevich would be an interesting one because you're kind of going top line versus top power play. What's better? Kind of like the Pominville and Okposo conversation from earlier. So I'd get a feeling that you would go with the even strength guy and go with Chris Kreider. Is that who we were talking about now? Jesper Fast? Who do you like between Fast and Buchnevich? I think that's what I'm asking you.
I will take Buchnevich.
Okay. So different than your Buffalo take, but obviously there's different people. Not everything could be just compared and be exactly the same. Sometimes analogies just don't work. Brian likes Jason Pominville and Pavel Buchnevich.
Who do you like?
I'd probably go Buchnevich because he's on the top power play, though. I also like Jesper Fast on the top line. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. Get Chris Kreider. Get Neil Pionk. I guess not Buchnevich, actually. I don't know. I have a feeling he's not going to be able to keep it up. Like, he keeps getting bounced around the lineup. Like, why is he in the bottom 6? I don't know. I would look to see who else is available in free agency. Maybe grab Jesper Fast, or maybe grab someone else that we've already talked about or we're about to talk about as we keep going. So tweet at us if you have Buchnevich. I'm curious to know who your other options are. Let's go to the next injury. San Jose has suffered some injuries lately. Jonas Donskoy suffered a shoulder injury earlier in the week. Vlasic and Melker Karlsson got hurt yesterday. The Donskoy injury is the one that's more interesting. Like, kind of really hurts. Like, he has 6 points his last 7 games. He was really clicking on the top line with Evander Kane and Joe Pavelski. He was even getting top power play time recently. So I actually went out and grabbed Jonas Donskoy, and then that game that I added him, he got injured. We don't know yet how long he'll be out, but I would definitely recommend stashing him if you can. Like, if you could put him in your IR or at least put him in your watch list. But if you could stash him now, and if he comes back to go right back to the top line and top power play, he could be a really guy. He could be a really good guy to bring into your lineup at a later point. He was on such a good run. Too bad. That sucks when you get injured like that. Looks like Yannick Hansen spent the majority of yesterday's game on the Kane and Pavelski line, while Kevin LeBanc while Kevin Labanc got a crack back on the top power play. Not much happening with Yannick Hansen, but Labanc may be worth another look. He put up a power play goal and an assist yesterday versus Vancouver, along with 5 shots. He also had 2 points in 3 games before that. So Labanc playing on the bottom 6, kind of like a Buchnevich. Line 3 with Timo Meier and Chris Tierney, which isn't great, but it's nice to be on the top power play. And the lines could, of course, shake up at any time. San Jose only plays Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week, so I'd imagine nobody should be in a rush to add anyone, like even Kevin Labanc, if he's available. Make sure you'd actually be able to fit him into your roster. But like I said, maybe the one thing you want to do with San Jose is see if you could stash Jonas Donskoy to get him back in your lineup later if he's going to be on the top line, top power play. So, Brian, it looks like here I've got an analogy, right? Labanc versus Buchnevich, both line 3, both top power play. Who would you prefer between those two?
I will still take Pavel Buchnevich. He's been a little less consistently disappointing compared to Kevin Labanc. Neither one offers you a whole lot. Like maybe Labanc has a better shot at getting 2 shots in a game compared to Buchnevich. They have similar enough deployment. I'm going with Buchnevich. Do you disagree?
No, I agree. Oh, good job. I think we are in sync here. And by the way, since we're on San Jose, let's talk about those 4 goals from Evander Kane that he put up against Calgary on Friday. It was his first career hat trick. He was apparently one of the players who has played the most games that had only ever had to, or no, what was it? Let me say this correctly. He was apparently one of the players with the most 2-goal games that never had a hat trick. Finally, he was able to break free of that and even got an extra goal for good measure. Kane also had 7 shots in that game, and he didn't put up a point yesterday in Vancouver, but he put 8 pucks on net, also threw 5 hits. So Evander Kane helping his fantasy owners in a bunch of categories, especially goals. This guy is going to get paid this summer. I'm telling you, just needs to stay healthy for the rest of the year, because that's the one concern with Evander Kane. If he gets injured right now, I'm sure people are going to be very concerned about signing him to a long-term contract. But if he could just keep this up, oh man, like San Jose is going to go for him. I'm sure a lot of teams are going to go for him as an unrestricted free agent.
I mean, he is in a decent position to get paid, but I'm not sure if Evander Kane will. Like lots of red flags in his career, fairly or unfairly. They're with him. Poor deployment in Buffalo. Like they just did not even want to put him in a good position, even though he was better than the players they had in the top 6. But again, Evander Kane could certainly make a case. I wonder if it's more likely, instead of getting like paid in long-term contract, I wonder if he's going to get a bridge deal, like a show-me situation like Alex Radulov had when coming back to the NHL, where he gets a year to prove himself to a new team on a reasonable contract. And of course, I mean, if he keeps scoring 4 goals with San Jose, then maybe Evander Kane earns a spot there next year. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think he's earned his spot. The question is if they're going to be able to pay him enough to stay there. But it makes sense. And obviously, this show's not about trying to project how much money players are going to sign for. And we'll definitely get into that during our summer series when free agency opens and Evander Kane signs somewhere. We'll definitely discuss what we think he'll be able to do next year. But obviously, really fantastic now. It's been a lot of fun having him in one of my leagues. I'm glad I held on all throughout all the tough times, because he is giving me lots of benefits right now when I need him most. But another guy who is injured and unfortunately not helping his owners, even though he's helped them all year long, is Seth Jones over in Columbus, having such an amazing season, up to 49 points in 71 games. This is very close to, what's his name? Oh man, my brain's going away. The guy in Boston?
Torrey Krug.
Torrey Krug, yeah. Very close to Torrey Krug territory at this point. This seems like at least a 55-point pace, like Seth Jones. And it's surprising. Like people all thought going into this year that Zach Werenski was going to be the guy in Columbus. Jones was probably drafted in most leagues, but obviously right now, Jones is the main guy. And moving forward next year, Jones is going to be someone you're definitely going to want to draft in your leagues pretty high. He's been so good, but now he is injured day-to-day with an upper body injury, like I said. So we don't know when he'll be back. The obvious beneficiary here is Zach Werenski, who gets onto the top power play with red-hot Atkinson and Panarin, and gotta be due soon, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and oh yeah, that guy, Alex Wenberg. So a fun cast of characters on the top power play, and I feel like it's a really good spot for Zach Werenski to land in. If he was dropped in your league for being cold a little while ago, obviously now you would go grab him. He's probably not available, but if he is, definitely you want him while Seth Jones is injured. Otherwise, I don't think there's that much more to say about the Columbus situation, right? Like, it's Jones is hurt, Werenski becomes the guy, and that's that.
Yeah, great nicknames. That guy, Alex Wenberg, is excellent. And I feel like you could shorten Pierre-Luc Dubois, like maybe Pierre-Luc, isn't he Dubois?
Oh, I like that. And yeah, keep your Columbus, by the way, has a good schedule next week. They play Monday and Tuesday, and Dubois might have been dropped. He's been cold lately, but he's on the top line and top power play. So he's definitely Dubois, in my opinion, to be able to put something on the board during next week's 4 games. But guy like Cam Atkinson, you got to grab. Like everyone has him now. But we're going to have to definitely discuss in the summer if we were wrong about Cam Atkinson only being a 55-point guy. He is really clicking with Panarin on the top line and top power play right now. Points almost every game. Fantastic. Okay, let's go to our next injury. Frederik Andersen is injured, but he could be back Tuesday, so no point digging too deep into him. Austin Matthews, by the way, should likely be back soon as well. I just kind of want to bring up Toronto to give a quick shout out to Curtis McElhinney, who single-handedly brought me to probably the Cacuffle Tier 2 Ottawa Division Finals with his shutout victory of the Habs yesterday. By the way, the Cacuffle is the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, and it's been a lot of fun all year, and congratulations to everyone who's going to advance to their division finals starting next week, and I'm looking like I'm going to be one of them. I'm very excited, and I have to thank Curtis McElhinney. If he would have had a bad game, I wouldn't be there, and now, oh, it's so sweet, and like, who would have thought that my savior would be McElhinney? Like, I was actually deciding between Aaron Dell and McElhinney all day. Dell had that primo matchup yesterday against Vancouver. I thought that would be a really good ad. But right now, I'm very happy I picked McElhinney. Otherwise, my mood would be very different, as Dell got the win, but he let in like 3 goals, and that would have hurt my save percentage. Anyway, you guys don't care about me, but I do want to say that McElhinney has been like really good. Like, I don't want to say he's an amazing goalie and ask like, Brian, how good is Curtis McElhinney? I know that he hasn't put up a career. Like, he's had a long time to show us that he's an amazing goalie, and he hasn't been able to do it. But this year, as the backup on Toronto, he's played 16 games, 10 wins, and a .935 save percentage. So he's been so good. Definitely one of the best spot starts out there right now, right? Like, if there's another game down the line where Anderson doesn't play and McElhinney's available, I feel like you can't grab anyone better.
Probably not, except I might prefer Eric Comrie still, even though he's totally unproven. Maybe a little more faith in Winnipeg than in Toronto defensively. I maintain still that every NHL team, no matter how well McElhinney is done, I don't think he's up to the standard of backup goalie that an NHL team should have. So I think Toronto is lucky they're skating by, that he's working out so far. McElhinney is crushing it at even strength, outperforming his expected save percentage by more than 2 full percentage points, and that's a real big deal. So sure, try him for a spot start, but you're pressing your luck every time you do put McElhinney in the net for a save percentage blow up. So good luck avoiding that whammy.
Brian, I mean, I could understand why you're saying that because of previous years, but at what point, like, what more does Curtis McElhinney have to do to prove to you that he's a reliable spot starter? He's a .935 save percentage. He's been amazing every single game he's played pretty much this year.
He has to not be Curtis McElhinney anymore.
He has to like change his name. He has to go to the federal offices and get a name change. And I think you just don't like this kind of a nerdy sounding name, right? I'm Curtis McElhinney.
Since when have I discriminated against anyone based on a nerdy sounding name?
Well, I don't know. You're discriminating right now against Curtis McElhinney.
But that's hero. Not why. He's had, like, we've seen enough of who he is. You already summarized my points when you introduced him. You said, Brian, I know you don't like him because throughout the course of his career, he's never appeared to be this guy. So I don't think he suddenly is.
I think that there's some goalies, and this is something I've sort of been learning this year. I think there's some goalies who aren't good, like in terms of being a starting goalie. Like back when McElhinney was on, what was it, Nashville, I think? Or Columbus? What team was he on for a while as the backup? St. Louis? No.
Ottawa?
No, what was the last team he was on that he got to play? I think it was Columbus, right? And
yeah, that sounds right.
And Bobrovsky got injured, and McElhinney had to come in for a bit, and he did nothing. I don't know if it wasn't Columbus.
It was.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, he sucked in that role as the starter. But I think as a guy who comes in and plays once every 2 weeks, he like gets in the right mindset. He knows how to do it. He seems to be, at least now, this year, on the Toronto Maple Leafs, a really good backup goalie. I don't think he's a risk to blow up your save percentage. I'd say start him with confidence if he gets a start. So I guess Brian and I disagree, and you could tweet at us and let us know if Brian screwed you, or if you want to thank me if you pick up Curtis McElhinney and he has another good game the next time he plays.
Wouldn't, those are products of the same result.
He screwed you, or you could thank me? That would be 2 different responses.
Oh, I thought you were saying if Brian screwed you by recommending against McElhinney, which I didn't totally. I just said, like, try him, but he's still not that good. But he's in a good position. He seems to be doing well. So go for it. Okay. Would you prefer McElhinney or Eric Comrie in a spot start?
I mean, obviously it depends who the opponent is, but right now I'd go McElhinney. Like, all else equal, give me the guy who just earned me my spot in the Cacuffle Finals. I love Curtis McElhinney, but let's go to our next injury now in Washington. Evgeny Kuznetsov is day-to-day for the Capitals. He injured his arm or his wrist or something. Like he fell into the boards in Friday's game against the Islanders. Didn't look like he was too comfortable. On Friday, Andrei Burakovsky stepped in to take Kuznetsov's top power play spot. that would, of course, be huge for Burakovsky to get on the top power play. There has been a game today, so let me check what happened in Washington. It looks like, yeah, Burakovsky was there on the top power play, also playing on a line with TJ Oshie and Nicholas Backstrom. So there's a clear beneficiary here of Evgeny Kuznetsov getting injured, and it is Andrei Burakovsky. Unfortunately, he hasn't done much with it in the last 2 games, including today. He doesn't have any points, so maybe that means he's going to get bumped at some point, and Washington lost today. But if he stays on the top power play, he definitely gets on my radar. How about you, Brian?
Yeah. Wait, sorry. This is Burakovsky, right?
Yeah. I said if he stays on the top power play, he should be on your radar.
I guess he does. Here's the Burakovsky story from this year. About halfway through the season, Burakovsky, who'd been very disappointing to date, missed a few games with an illness. That was like in early January. And since he came back after that illness, Burakovsky has played 24 games and has still been terribly disappointing. 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points, only 40 shots in 24 games. That also includes time as a healthy scratch. It's been a nasty, ugly year for him that I hope can somehow be somewhat quasi redeemed by a turn on the top power play, which, by the way, is a relatively new thing for him. Haven't seen him in that role for extended time in the past, although we have made the case that he belonged there. And Burakovsky has also been seeing time with TJ Oshie and Nicholas Backstrom at even strength. So in a deep league, that's a decent gamble to take with that kind of deployment. But the Washington Capital, Elon, that I'm going to suggest that maybe you should be more interested in is Jacob Vrana. He had an assist in tonight's game against Philadelphia that puts him on a 3-game point streak. And going back further, including tonight, Vrana is up to 7 points in his last 9 games with 19 shots on goal. And he's managed this all while playing between 9 and 12 minutes a night. Those 9 and 12 minutes have been coming in part with Kuznetsov and TJ Oshie, and in part with much less appealing pieces like the ones he was playing with tonight, like Lars Eller and Alex Chiasson. But he is certainly worth considering, especially if you want to try and guarantee yourself at least a couple shots. So, Elon, I put to you, I've made my case for Jacob Vrana. Do you prefer him or Andrei Burakovsky? I already know your answer.
Well, no, actually, I'm just going to pass on this question because I'm not even into Jacob Vrana. Let me throw another name at you, and then we can talk about all 3 of them. How about Travis Boyd, who played on the top line today with Alex Ovechkin and Tom Wilson? And Travis Boyd assisted on Alex Ovechkin's goal. I don't even know who this guy is, but I think I'd rather have the guy playing with Ovechkin than Jacob Vrana. Maybe Burakovsky is the guy I would want the most because he's on the top power play. So I'm definitely going to have Vrana last. I'm going to have Burakovsky and Travis Boyd as one of the top 2 that I would want, depending on who he is. And then there's also, by the way, Tom Wilson, who also had an assist today, and he also gets you hits. So there's some appealing options for the Capitals right now with this Kuznetsov injury, and even before in terms of Tom Wilson, though he doesn't get you a ton of points. He is good for the hits. Right, but who is this Travis Boyd, by the way? Sorry for throwing this on you. I know we didn't prepare this going into the show, but I guess we got to know now.
He is a 24-year-old undersized forward, right-handed, drafted by Washington back in 2011 in the 6th round, so 177th overall. So not a huge pedigree there, out of the University of Minnesota. And this is his first NHL cup of coffee in his 3rd full pro season. He's done okay in the AHL, if I'm doing my math correctly very quickly. He has 116 points over the course of 172 AHL games. And that was before this year, in which he has 44 points in 56 games with AHL Hershey. So he's been scoring down there. We'll see if he can keep that going in the NHL. He sure, I like when guys who are known for their scoring in the AHL earn a call up and then they actually get to play in a scoring role. That's the best way for things to happen. I've been on this rant before where NHL teams call up guys in the AHL who could probably be good scorers because they proved it at every other level, but they're stuck in like a bottom 6 checking role with very limited minutes and they never really get a fair shake. I feel like there's several careers we never saw take off just for that reason. So Travis Boyd getting a shot. I still would have him 3rd out of Burakovsky and Vrana.
Forget. Guaranteed Vrana does nothing next week. Maybe also another interesting conversation.
Did you listen to anything I said about Vrana?
You said he's gotten points recently, but he's on a line with Lars Eller and Alex Chiasson. I feel like it's luck. Whatever. Sometimes people get points. Doesn't mean they're going to keep. Are you going to add Lars Eller? He also had a stretch of getting points. You never said you were interested in him, and I guarantee to you that you're not going to add Jacob Vrana in any league. I'll bet you he's not even currently on any of your watch lists. Am I wrong?
No, you are wrong. And I was interested in Lars Eller at the time, and you told me not to be. You told me he was garbage. But Vrana has been putting up points for 9 games now.
Okay, so we'll see next week.
You're usually interested in that.
I like people who are at least in the top 6 or on the top power play, and Verana's neither. So pass for me, but who knows? I mean, everyone knows that you are the brains here, and I'm the guy asking the question. So probably people should be out there adding Verana, but also I guarantee you that Brian's not going to add Verana. So it's not as if he's like going to eat his lunch or whatever the saying is for that one. And I guess since we're in Washington, also, we should probably check in on the goalies, right? So Grubauer had a bad game today. He let in 5 goals on 34 shots. Does this mean that Holtby gets back in next week? We don't know right now. Capitals play just Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. What's your prediction, Brian? Who's going to play more games between Holtby and Grubauer in the 3 games next week?
I think that Grubauer's bad start might give the Capitals a reason that they might be looking for to get Holtby back in the net. And then I think whether he stays in net is going to be a function of whether he performs well or not. The last time he was given the opportunity, he did not do well. So we'll see if he can turn this one into another start. I really do feel like it's start by start right now.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to take a risk, you can drop Grubauer right now if you really need to drop someone from your team. Maybe if once Holtby gets announced as a starter for the next game, you could switch out, but who knows? Like you say, it depends how Holtby does. One more injury, then we'll get to some hot and cold streaks to end the show. Vladimir Tarasenko took an elbow to the month from Neil Pionk yesterday, and he didn't return to the game. No update yet that I've seen. This is at least as of 4 p.m., so maybe you want to check on Twitter, search for Tarasenko, and see if you have anything more recent about how long he'll be out. Looks like Alex Steen jumped up to take Tarasenko's spot with Schwartz and Schenn, but I'd expect a line shakeup if Tarasenko will be out. Like, this was mid-game. In general, I feel like everyone gets hurt by Tarasenko being injured on St. Louis. I'd be very nervous if I owned any of Schenn or Schwartz or Steen or even Pietrangelo. Like, the Blues are doing okay today. Looks like, well, they're losing 3-2 to Chicago. So actually, that's not very good. They're getting some points. Maybe you'll still be able to get some points out of your Blues players, but that just kind of sucks for Tarasenko. Like, I can't think of anyone who benefits from this. Maybe someone like a Tage Thompson gets into the top 6, but come on, you're not going to add him. Well, maybe Brian would, since he adds people like Verana.
Oh my God. I swear Verana is your type of player. I don't know what, well, I guess without the deployment, he's not. You have suggested worse players before, probably on this show. Tarasenko has not missed extended time in any of the last 3 years before this one. So we'll get to see how this affects things with him not in the lineup. I could see Jaden Schwartz and Braden Schenn trying to step up, making the most of added responsibilities. But even then, I can't say that their upside is suddenly a whole lot better without Tarasenko. One guy having no trouble producing without Vladimir Tarasenko tonight, Vince Dunn, with 1 power play goal, 1 power play assist, just keeps on rolling.
When you say keeps on rolling, was he rolling at all before today?
No, but he still is somehow in that power play 1 conversation in St. Louis. He only has 20 points on the season, although in 65 games, it's not awful.
It's not awful. And he actually had a power play assist also in yesterday's game against the Rangers. That's a 2-game power play point streak. So yeah, take a look at Vince Dunn if you want some power play points from a defenseman for next week. Let's go to some hot streaks and cold streaks now. Aside from Vince Dunn, you messaged me earlier in the week, Brian, saying we've got to bring up Arturi Lehkonen on the show. And I can definitely see why. He has 4 goals in his last 5 games. No points versus McElhinney in Toronto yesterday, of course. But Arturi Lehkonen had 7 shots on goal, which is fantastic. He was playing on a line with Alex Galchenyuk and De La Rose yesterday. I assume you're still into Lehkonen for next week, especially with the Habs playing 4 games?
Yeah, I am still into Lehkonen. And the Habs have a very desirable Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule in a week where Tuesday and Thursday are probably loaded up. So Lehkonen on your squad is probably a great way to add a few extra games rather than benching the lowest end forwards on Tuesday and Thursday, not even potentially getting a game out of them until later in the week. Lehkonen has 4 goals on 21 shots in his last 5 games. Unfortunately, his power play role is minimal, but lovely that he still manages to rack up so many shots without even getting grade A opportunities.
So he's definitely someone to look at, definitely for shots on goal. Also, if he's going to take 7 shots like he did yesterday, then that would be very valuable to get someone who's going to give you that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A huge leg up versus, like you say, having someone not even playing on your roster because he's sitting on Tuesday and Thursday. Next, Brian, in Chicago, should we be paying attention to this guy, Eric Gustafsson on Chicago? He's a defenseman, and he's put up some points recently. He had 2 goals and 4 assists in 4 games. Like a couple games ago, that was his stretch. Now for the last couple of games, he was pointless, but he did put up 3 and 5 shots. Chicago is playing again today, so I can take a look in a second to see how he's doing today. But it looks like also Erik Gustafsson has been getting top unit power play time, at least in the last 3 games. The usage of Chicago defensemen have been so weird this season. Like, I don't know why they don't just put Duncan Keith there like they always seem to do, but I guess obviously they haven't been too into him. Now I see Duncan Keith actually got some points today, which might really hurt us because our opponent has him. But regardless, what do you think of this guy, Erik Gustafsson? Is there anything there? Like, can you tell us who this guy is? Should people be riding him as long as he's the top power play defenseman? Is he still the top power play defenseman?
Hard to say. We've seen this role change a whole lot of times, and Erik Gustafsson makes what, the fourth, who's that? Defenseman in Chicago to come up on our radars this year. We've had Jan Ruta, Cody Franson, Jordan Osterley. I don't think I'm missing one. So Gustafsson is the fourth player to come out of nowhere and be used in a really great spot in Chicago. The 26-year-old Swede was an early 4th-round pick of the Edmonton Oilers back in 2012. Gustafsson was picked 93rd overall, but Edmonton never signed him. And so he ended up starting his career with Chicago, where he's been pretty decent in their organization. 47 points in 93 games for AHL Rockford since the beginning of the 2016-17 season. And Gustafsson, unlike the others who've had their turns in Chicago, has some offensive pedigree, known as a smooth skating, puck-moving offensive defenseman, which his AHL numbers can attest to. So I don't have too many reservations about riding him the way you may have the other Chicago D-men when they were getting their great deployment. In fact, I probably have fewer reservations for Gustafsson than the others. So as long as he's in that spot, great. Give him a shot. But again, Duncan Keith seems to be getting power play assists tonight. I haven't seen exactly how the setup is shaking out. Elon, I don't know if you've noticed, but that wouldn't bode well for Gustafsson.
No, it looks like it's been like there was a power play goal from Alex DeBrincat assisted by Keith and Schmaltz. That's the second unit. There's Kane and Taves and his friends are up on the top unit. So I'm pretty sure that Gustafsson is still there. You could check into the practice lines tomorrow and see, like, you know, before you add him if he's still on the top power play. But yeah, a very good spot for him. If you're on the top power play with Patrick Kane, you're probably worth owning. And like I said, he's even taking some shots, so he's going to help you in some other categories. Let's go to this game today between Carolina and the Islanders. As far as Carolina goes, I just want to point out that Toivo Teravainen has 6 goals and 4 assists in his last 9 games. That was before today. Another assist today. I don't really have a question. I wish I had Teravainen instead of Jeff Skinner in the cupful. Skinner's been so frustrating to own, just hovering over. I can't drop him, but not really doing much for me. Teravainen, so good, like one of the big sleeper surprises of this year. I don't think we've given him enough credit. I know we've mentioned him a couple times. I just wanted to throw his name out there. You can let me know if you want to say anything about him. I also want to mention on the Islanders side that they shifted their lines around and they decided to put John Tavares on the wing, apparently on the top line. So it didn't really work out that well because the Islanders lost. But I guess at least for fantasy owners, they got some points. It was a 4-3 loss to Carolina. And there was Josh Bailey scored a goal, assisted from Tavares. Anders Lee scored a power play goal, and then Anders Lee scored another power play goal. Good game for Tavares. I don't know if that means anything. Like, is there anything to you about Tavares playing on the wing, or Islanders just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing if they go, hey, John, if you want to play on the wing, we could do that for you. Anything you want, just stay with us, please.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea what they're thinking with that. I haven't seen any rationale for it yet. Something I'll probably look into tomorrow to see if there's anything to it. Going back to Teravainen, Elon, he's now a point-per-game player over his last 15 games since the second week of February. 8 goals and 7 assists for 15 points, 39 shots in that time. One thing we were down on Skinner for was that he stopped taking shots in addition to stopping his production, but he did manage a 9-shot-on-goal game. Was it 3 or 4 games ago? He has 18 shots over his last 4 games. I don't think that includes today's total, though I'm not sure what he finished with in the game this Sunday. So that's reason to still be sort of interested if shots on goal are going to help you. But Toivo Teravainen absolutely deserves some heavy kudos. Good on you for making sure he gets them.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying with Jeff Skinner. He gets those big shot games. I guess I can't drop him. He's helping me with shots, but I'd prefer a lot more. He had 36, 37 goals last year. It was such a great year. And then I drafted him high this year, and he's been a borderline guy on my roster. Oh, well, what can you do? Not everyone could be amazing. Let's end on the Tampa Bay Lightning with someone who has been amazing and someone who hasn't been so amazing. First, JT Miller. Totally loving life right now on the top line in Tampa. I think the last time we talked about it, we said Miller's on the top line. It'll probably change, but for now, ride him. He's held that spot for a little while, playing with Kucherov and Stamkos. He had a hat trick and 10 shots on goal versus Ottawa on Tuesday, 9 points in 8 games as a member of the Lightning. That was before today. He had another assist today on a goal by Nikita Kucherov, assisted by Stamkos and Miller. So it's just such a good spot. If he's somehow still available for you, you have to rush to grab JT Miller. Someone who you can't really drop, but must be frustrating the heck out of you is Andrei Vasilevsky. He's been terrible over the past 10 games, an .894 save percentage over that run. 2 straight sub 900 save percentage games for his owners this week in their quarterfinals. Like, you've had Vasilevsky all year, and he's gotten you to this point, and now he might have sunk you. I'd be curious to know who of the names we're going to mention in this next segment where we talk about teams who have lost, how many of them had Andrei Vasilevsky as their main goalie. Man, just goes to show you can't trust a goalie. You never know what's going to happen. Curtis McElhinney could turn out to be the better option than Andrei Vasilevsky on a given night. I'd imagine Vasilevsky is going to get drafted really highly next year just because Tampa's a good team and he had a good year overall. I'm not going to be taking him high. I'm going to let someone else draft Vasilevsky. I'll grab someone later on in the draft for sure. What do you think?
First, I'll expand on JT Miller, seeing another 76 seconds per game with Tampa than he was with the Rangers, not to mention getting to play with a couple guys named Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov for the past 3 games, and Braden Point and Yanni Gourde before that. Both of those line combos are better than any sets of 3 that JT Miller was a part of in New York with fewer minutes. So this is a wonderful situation for him. As for Vasilevsky and my goalie drafting strategy, am I going to take an early pick on him? Am I going to waste an early pick on him? No, I'm not. We talked on our patrons only patron cast this past week about our goalie drafting strategies and how they might change going into next year. And I don't believe Vasilevsky to be having a crazy good season, but he's in a great spot with a strong team that carries plenty of automatic value. But in a head-to-head league and save percentage being so variable, and with the way the mighty have fallen this year, like Braden Holtby, Carey Price, Matt Murray being injured so often, Craig Anderson, wink, probably better ways to use those early picks than on goalies that can fluctuate and surprise us very much more often than players.
And with that, Brian, we are done with the players I wanted to bring up on this episode, which means that we're at the end of the show. But before we end things, we have a tradition on Keeping Karlsson, which is that we want to pay homage and say goodbye to the teams who have lost this year in fantasy hockey. It's always so tough to make it to the playoffs, work hard all year just to lose in a quarterfinal or semifinal. And Brian, I see you asked on Twitter and on our patron Facebook group for the teams that have been eliminated. So I think it would only be right for us to pay tribute to those that we have lost. So why don't we cue our Happy Father's Day track, which we play for some reason as we discuss these names. And yeah, it's really sad and we're really sorry to see that you lost. Hopefully you don't blame us.
Shall we start remembering the ones we've lost?
Go ahead, man. You do the honors. Why don't you start us off?
Okay. Let's start off with Sticks Out for Harambe.
Oh, good name, but you lost, so too bad. Erie Otters.
Nova Rec All-Stars.
Luongis Deek.
Netflix and Phil.
This is hard. I wish you would have made a list.
What's so hard? It's easier in TweetDeck.
Okay. Mark Knifley.
The Stormy Daniels, owned by someone named Daniel.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's why it's called that. Thin Blue Line. Maybe that's why you lost.
Bergeron Swanson. If you own Bergeron, that's frustrating.
Yeah, that sucks when you lost because of an injury. Good team name. Frustrating. Did you pick up Riley Nash at least? I don't know. Okay. Stammer's Hammer.
Rolla Fleur Lemayo.
There you go. Generals.
Barkov's Beauty. Huh?
Nothing.
Barkov's Beauties.
Marco Island Manatee.
Soft Dump in the Corner.
North Sask River Pilots. First place all year. Bounced in round 1. Oof.
Ouch. Raccoon McJesus.
Yager's Mullet.
Is that all for Twitter? I didn't even see Yager's mullet here.
Yeah, I'm still going.
Oh, man.
There's also Brockett Richard.
Okay, hang on. I need to... TweetDeck cuts them off. Okay, got it. Brockett Richard.
Triumph of the Will. Butcher.
It was fair of myself that made me ought.
Yeah, those last two, by the way, were patrons. I know that Ian was in my league and had Triumph of the Will Butcher, and he was a very worthy component. I was very surprised he didn't make the playoffs. It was like 1 point. Too bad. Sorry. And Lewis from Tier 1. with that last team. So sucks to be them. Do we have more names, Brian?
We do, including the team I am putting out of its misery tonight in the Cupful semifinals on my way to the finals in Tier 1 Sweden, my pet rock Rangelo.
That's making fun of me. That's fine. New Team 7. In serious danger. Bradley, you could let us know. I think he's in the chat room if he ended up losing.
Well, Bradley also mentioned that blurred linies can be added to the list conclusively as of 6 hours ago.
Okay. Next. Non-Hopkins lymphoma. Okay. And Vova, which is a popular nickname for Vladimir.
And the very good keeps. VGK in brackets.
Ryan, your names are complicated. Okay. The Curious Case of Benjamin Bishop. And the Latang Clan.
Oh, I thought that was Chris.
Me. Well, I don't know. Same by one person.
Oh, your sound went crazy again.
Okay, I'll just do that part over. The Curious Case of Benjamin Bishop.
Latang Clan.
Something phallic with Vlasic.
And that concludes our list this week of the teams that we're remembering from the 27-18 fantasy hockey season. If your team lost or won, tweet at us. Please tell us the result so we know which part to include you in, and we will happily shout you out for a season well or poorly performed.
And Brian, in our joint league, the matchup is still going as we speak. We're currently up by 3 points. Oh my God. Retaining Tavares might join the list. I hope they don't. But yeah, okay. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of the show. Sorry if you were on that list of teams that got eliminated, but hopefully you'll still stick with us through the rest of the season because we're still going to be breaking down everything going on and maybe start looking forward to next year as we approach the end of the season. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks everyone in the chat room. Also, if you like the show, tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know. Give us your feedback. Also, if you want to give us a 5-star review on iTunes, we would always really appreciate that. We also have a program for patrons of the podcast. You can throw us $5 a month. That's like a beer for Brian or I. We have to fight over it, but one of us gets a beer once a month and you get a bonus episode every week. I know you're thinking, oh, it's already over, the season's over. You can sign up right now for 1 month. We're still going to keep doing our bonus content every single week through the end of the season and afterwards as well. We'll figure out a schedule for that. So yeah, check all of that out at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. But with that, let's cue the outro music. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dauber Hockey and supported by our patrons, including our newest ones, Shane D and Wubby N, who is immediately the best named page. Well, actually, Toot is up there too. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Pool, Dauber Prospects, Corsica, Natural Stat Trek, Charting Hockey, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, Roto World, and Fantrax.
Great job as always, Brian. Thanks again to everyone listening. We'll be back at you with another live episode next week.
Until then, keep on keeping Karlsson. Good luck in your fantasy playoffs.
Boom. Good show. Long one.
Long one? Why so long?
Because we had to do this thing at the end.
That was like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If we lose, I'll be so mad. It's so annoying.
Yeah. I mean, Duncan Keith suddenly playing offense isn't good for us. And Hull and Palmieri were in the negatives just like minutes ago.
So basically, we're up by 1 assist at this point.
Oh my God.
He's got Radulov, Keefe, ending soon in that game. Oh, and Pietrangelo. Oh man. Okay, so all 3 of those guys are in the St. Louis-Chicago game, and we have Stasny. And then in the other game, Anaheim and New Jersey, he has a Montour and Fowler, and we have Hall and Palmieri. So, I mean, you'd think we should be in good shape. We have better players.
We have, well, once the Dallas game ends, we have better players. And the Dallas game is going to end, there's still like half a period left.
Oh, my God. Oof. All right. And then after that, we have to set up all the couple final rounds. Got to edit the show. What a night. And we got to plan out for next week.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
No sleep tonight.
No sleep till Brooklyn.
Is that a saying?
It's a Beastie Boys song.
No sleep till Brooklyn? What does that even mean?
I guess they're going to Brooklyn and they're not going to sleep until they get there. There's also the song Sleep Tonight by Stars.
What's that about?
I don't know, but you like it.
Don't you think that a lot of songs. Like I don't even listen to the words of songs. I find like I like sing along. I could be saying like hateful stuff for all I know because I just don't pay. It's like the words are not English words to me. It's just like singing note. Like you know what I mean? Do you ever have that where you like love a song and then you realize what the hell is that song even about that I've been singing for the past 2 months?
I feel like you would notice if it was hateful.
Hopefully.
But I agree that sometimes I don't catch the words. I'm more into the vibe.
You know that song about by Sia, like I'm gonna fly on a chandelier. I always wondered, like, why is she doing that? But I never actually had the put in the effort of listening to the other words to hear what that means.
You just heard her really sell the word chandelier, and that's as far as you got.
It seems very dangerous to swing on a chandelier. Like I really hope, and it's also like dangerous not only for the person swinging on the chandelier, but also the people under you who might be walking, and it might be an expensive piece of architecture. Like I don't know, it just seems like a very irresponsible thing to do. So I'm curious to know what makes her want to do that. I guess she's just really happy.
Anyway. Maybe just listen to the song and let us know.
Okay. Also, we should have mentioned Chris wrote in the chat room and I forgot to bring it up. Trouba injured. You could have mentioned that at the end.
Dang.
Maybe I'll say it right now. Oh, and by the way, potentially ignore everything we said about Jacob Trouba because it looks like he got injured today. Actually, I laughed while I said that for some reason, so let me do it again. One last quick thing. Apparently, Jacob Trouba got injured today, so forget everything we said about him. Don't add him if he's injured, obviously. Bye! Okay, I'll try to get that in. Okay, I guess I'll end this. Bye, Brian. Have a good night. So
Bye.
You'll do the write-up, and I could probably just take care of the couple stuff. I'll let you know how it goes. I guess we'll just be chatting, watching these scores for the next 10 minutes or so.
Well, next hour. Oh, no, Brandon Montour got a hit. Ugh.
Whatever. If they don't get a point, we're good. That's all that matters. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.